My name is Alistair Lee. In this video, we're going to take a look at the Connect Pro Savings Calculator. The Connect Pro Savings Calculator is available on the Adobe Exchange completely for free. So let's begin by taking a look at how to get it. I'm going to switch over to my browser here. You can actually get to the Exchange by typing in www.adobe.com/exchange. From here, I'm going to select the Connect Pro section of the Exchange. And on the home page here, we've got some staff picks. The calculator is actually available in the staff picks section. I'm going to scroll down until I get to this section here, the Connect Pro Savings Calculator, and I can hit the download button to download this zip file to my desktop. Now, this compressed zip file actually contains two different files. One is the SWIFT file itself. That's a SWF file. It's a flash file, and that's actually the calculator that we're going to upload to our Connect Pro room. The other file is a PDF document that goes through some of the documentation and some instructions, as well as the source for all of the different calculations that are contained within the calculator, in case you're interested. Now that I've downloaded the zip file to my system, I've unzipped it, I've got the two different files, the SWIFT and the PDF. I want to upload that flash file to my Connect Pro room. And to do that, I'm going to add a new share pod into my Connect Pro room. I'm just going to select a new blank share pod here. I'm just going to start by resizing it right away. It's a little big. And this file exists on my computer right now, so I've got a document to share on my computer. So I'm going to select the Documents button and then select from my computer. I've got it in a flash directory here, so I'm going to select it from my desktop, hit the Open button, and that's going to open it up inside of Connect Pro. The conversion process is very fast because it's already a Flash-based application. I'm just going to position that in my layout right now. And here we've got the Connect Pro Savings Calculator. It's divided up into 4 or 5 different sections. It starts with a bit of a welcome. Then we've got a section on travel costs. All of these figures in blue here can be changed. So the idea is we've populated this with default data that we've gotten from some industry analysts. But the calculator is meant to be used with other people in the room to determine what's the average airfare, the mileage rate, what do we spend on parking or tolls per traveler for each day that they're traveling, hotel costs, costs around meals or car rentals. Again, we've added some default data based on industry analysts, but feel free to change this based on your current travel averages. Then the next section lists out the travel activities, and this is actually the section that's really important to focus on because these activities tend to vary from customer to customer. You'll find that the travel costs, the defaults will work for most organizations, but because organizations vary in size, vary in the number of travelers they've got, this is really important to customize. So here we want to enter the number of trips per year. We've broken it down, the number of trips that we take that are long haul, where a flight is involved, versus the trips that we're just driving, the average miles driven, the average trip length, lost productivity. This is a figure that comes from Wainhouse Research. They determined that an average trip results in about 5 hours of lost productivity. But again, this is a figure in blue, so you can change that. If 6 is more an accurate number, then go ahead and change it. And then the number of travelers within your organization. Might want to change that to 300 or 400 for a larger organization, or keep it down at 15 or 20 for a smaller organization. Finally, the last section is the costs and savings section, and this is the section that calculates the cost of travel based on the travel costs and the travel activities for that organization. So it determines an average cost per trip, and again, the industry average is about $970, so this is a fairly average cost right here at $949. We've got the average annual cost per person. These are the people that travel within the organization. Based on the values that I've entered, the average annual cost per person is a little over $7,000. And the cost to the organization is almost $2.2 million, as well as over 14,000 hours of lost productivity. We do have one value on here that we can edit, and that's the amount of travel that we believe we can reduce based on a Connect Pro solution. I've defaulted 33 in here, but if you think you can reduce 50% of the travel, then we can determine the cost savings and the productivity gain based on the amount of travel we're able to reduce. So those are the basics behind the calculator itself, and if you're interested in how we're calculating those values, all of that's actually documented in the PDF that you'll find in the zip file. I would like to spend a couple of seconds, though, going through some of the different options that are available that aren't necessarily obvious when you first open up this calculator. First of all, we've opened this up into a share pod, and every share pod has got this sync button included, and the calculator actually looks at that sync button to see whether it's pressed down or not. And this sync button determines whether the navigation is synchronized. What that means is if the sync button is pressed down, and by default it is, then any change that I make, so if I change the average airfare to $250, that change will be reflected on all of the other instances of this travel calculator. So if I've got 10 people in my room, all 10 people will see the change of average airfare from $223 to $250. In other words, the calculator is synchronized when I've got this sync button pressed. And that's handy for a small meeting, but if you're in a larger meeting with 50 or 60 people and everybody's trying to make changes to those values, that can turn into chaos fairly quickly. And so in those cases, you can unpress the sync button, and now if I make another change, let's say changing the mileage rate to 60 cents per mile, that change is actually only reflected on my copy of the Connect Pro calculator. So on my copy, the costs and savings will update based on the new 60 cents per mile, but that will only be reflected in my copy of the calculator, nobody else's. Again, if I want it to be reflected on everybody's, I need to make sure that sync button is pressed down. We can see some more options by pressing the Host Options button down at the bottom. That's the eye in the dark circle, and that's actually only visible to the hosts of the meeting room. So the participants won't even see this little eye at the bottom of the Connect Pro Savings Calculator. If I press that, I've actually got some more options around the synchronized experience. I call this seminar mode. It's basically, by default, we're giving everybody in the room, the hosts, the presenters, and the participants, the ability to enter data and make changes to those default values. But if I'm running this in a large seminar, I may want to have the calculator synchronized so that when I make a change, everybody sees that change, but I don't want the participants in the meeting room to be able to make those same changes. And so I can actually uncheck this default here to take away the ability for participants in the meeting room to enter data. So that's the first option. I've also got the option inside of this Host Options section to adjust the size of the calculator. The calculator actually ignores the size of the pod it's in, and so if you want to make it bigger, you can simply make it bigger or smaller in this Host Options dialog box. You can see there's a plus button and a minus button that will adjust the size of the calculator itself. Because this is inside of a Connect Pro room and it's a Flash application, all content inside Connect Pro rooms are persistent, which means it will remember not only these options that I'm setting in the host options setting, but also the values that I've entered. And if I want to get those default values back, the values that came from the industry analysts, I can do that by coming into this options section and clicking Reset Default Values. And that will set back all of the values in the calculator itself to the industry defaults. Finally, I've got another option in here to download the documentation. This is something that you should already have. It's that PDF that you saw in the zip file, but somebody else who's seeing this for the first time in a Connect Pro room might not have that PDF file. They may want to see how these calculations were created, and so that option is also available to them. So that's a quick look at the Connect Pro Savings Calculator. Thanks for your